Hi guys, my name is Mayana and welcome to Mayo Core. Today I'm going to be talking about Queen Charlotte. Okay, so basically I watched Queen Charlotte. I became obsessed with it. The book came out. I said I have to read this book. Honestly, I don't really know what the point of this video is. Like, I don't know if I'm like telling you what the book is about. I just took some notes. I was like, I need to do a Queen Charlotte video. This is the best thing I could think of because I didn't want to vlog and like take away from my experience. So I said I'm just gonna take notes. So I have like some differences. I have like some things that were like added, some like scenes book that were in the show, some like scenes that like happened like later on. In the beginning of like me reading the book, I kind of remembered exactly what happened, but towards the end I was like took a little bit long to read this, so I don't remember. But I got this book 5 stars. If you watched Queen Charlotte and you loved it and you want to read the book, I highly recommend it. Honestly, I just want, like, if anyone's wondering, like if anyone's like me, like personally I don't mind knowing what's gonna happen in something before I like read it or watch it. And I mean, it's already a TV show, so you can already know. I'm wearing this corset. It's tight as hell. I'm gonna loosen this up a little bit. Okay. Oh my gosh, I would not have made it. I would not have made it. I tried to like make a corset, try to like wear a cute corset to like, I don't know, give the Queen Charlotte vibes, because they wore corsets, which I love. That's what they wore, because like I don't really hate the fashion in Bridgerton, but I am not like obsessed with it either. And so yeah, so before I start though, I do want to say that like I do like Bridgerton. I wasn't really a fan of season 1. Like I didn't really hate it or anything. I just thought it was like cool, but I wasn't like obsessed, especially with like the essay scene that happens with Daphne and Simon. I kind of just couldn't really get with season 1. And I just thought it was like so long. Like there's 8 episodes, it's an hour long, and like I love slow burn, but they literally didn't even get together until episode 1. So it's 7 hours of pining, which is like, yeah, it's fun, but after a while I kind of was just like, okay, whatever. And then I liked season 2, but it was like my same issue of like, and like I love like all like the barely touching and like the longing stares and like all that. I loved it, but the fact that they did not get together until the last episode just actually killed me. And so when I watched Queen Charlotte, I immediately loved it. I loved that like Shonda Rhimes wasn't like playing around. Like you didn't have to wait, and like yeah, there was still pining, there was still slow burn, and like it was even better because they were like married but they like hated each other, but they like secretly loved each other. It was just, everything about it was just so perfect. It was for me personally. So that's how I felt about it. I loved it. It's like one of my favorite shows. Queen Charlotte's like literally like my favorite show list, which I rarely ever call a show my favorite show. I'm gonna rewatch it soon. Actually, reading the book felt like rewatching it, and then once I get a physical copy of the book, I'm gonna be rereading it so I can annotate it, because my ebook was annotated the hell up. Like it was so fun. So yeah, let's just actually like get into the video though. The book has multiple POVs. You get POVs from Charlotte, George, Agatha, and Brimsley. So there was no back and forth between past and present, which by present I mean Bridgerton time. It was just the past. Personally, I like the plotline for 15 kids, but I think that if it was written in the book, it would have like taken me out. The book starts off like it literally is exactly like the TV show. Like it starts off the exact same time. It actually, instead of starting off where Charlotte like overhears her brother though, it starts off with them in the carriage. And so it does answer a few questions, like what happened to both Charlotte's father and mother, and what happened to George II. No, it's history, like obviously like what happened to George's father, but also okay, so after what happened I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. So basically his like, so George's father died in the book due to a cricket ball hitting him in the chest. But when I googled it, the real George II actually didn't die that way. And like I know that like Bridgerton is loosely based off history, which is what I thought was fun, because if I wanted to fact check something, I would just Google it and I'll be like, oh, I've been learning a lot, honestly. But yeah, so from my research, I found that he actually died from a aortic dissection, which is a catastrophic event in which the blood surges through a rent in the innermost layer of the aorta and dissects its way along the vessel wall. I have absolutely no idea what that means. And I kept trying to Google it and figure it out, but I could not find anyone to dumb it down for me. So yeah, George has 9 siblings, which I thought was cool because I had a lot of questions like watching the TV show, like how many siblings did they have, like what happened to their parents, so like, and a lot of like smaller questions. So I feel like this book really answered those, which I really appreciated. So yeah, George, he has 9 siblings. It is also hinted that Charlotte has more brothers. It's not really talked about though. She does talk about having a sister. Also, they speak German in the book, which I thought was like really interesting because we know that Charlotte is from Germany. But I feel like in the TV show she didn't really speak German. Honestly, you would forget that she was from Germany if they didn't like say that. So yeah, she spoke German, and like I thought that was like, you could like, she spoke as if someone who was like a bilingual who like spoke German, and I really like that. Also because I took German for 3 years in high school, so it was good to refresh my memory because I wanted to relearn German, but I'm really taking the time to. So it was really cool to read. None of the words I remembered or understood, and I had to keep Googling things. But yeah, also whatever episode it was, I think it was like episode 5, you know, the episode where they like travel back in time and you're trying to like figure out like you're trying to figure out like what's going on with George, like, you know, there's like this mystery, but like what's going on with King George. So that is already stated, like, and then you end up like getting a parallel of like what was happening from Charlotte's point of view, but like what was happening from George's point of view, or you get a parallel from like the, you know, the first few episodes of like, so you know, you had Charlotte's point of view, but this is what happened with George. In the book, that's already like in the timeline, so because it's dual POV with multiple POV, so you get George's perspective. So instead of like waiting until like the middle of the book to find out, oh, like this is why George was acting weird, you get it from the jump, which I actually enjoyed. Like, I get why they did it in the TV show, but I'm glad they didn't do it in the book. Like, I don't know, I feel like the decisions that they made in the book were absolutely genius, and I love that they made those decisions because I would have been annoyed either way. Also, there's like this really funny scene where Agatha is teaching Charlotte about sex. It kind of like in the TV show where she's like drawing her pictures, except Brinsley is there and they keep like asking him questions and he just like does not want to answer them, and like it's just like making things so awkward. And it's like, I kind of liked it because they treated Brinsley as though he was like, obviously, like as though he was like a friend instead of just like, you know, a guy who like is her personal bodyguard. Also, if you think the things that they were saying to each other in the show was insane, like them like professing their loves, the things that they thought about each other in the book was even more beautiful. Like immediately, like George's like first, like his first impression of Charlotte was absolutely stunning. Like it was like the most beautiful thing I've ever like read. It was amazing. So instead of seeing Venus when she visited him at the Q, shows her Venus when she comes to visit her after receiving the dog. Also, he says this beautiful line, "I am enchanted. I can barely breathe, waiting to kiss you again." Is that not insane? Is that not insane? Like, I'm not okay. Are you okay? Because I'm not. Also, I feel like Charlotte was a lot nicer in the book than she was in the TV show. Like, I guess a little bit nicer. Like, I feel like, I don't know, I guess because in general, one thing that kind of confuses me, not really confuses me, but one thing is like, how did Queen Charlotte end up to how she was in Bridgerton? Because I feel like in Queen Charlotte she was just like so like nice, and she was like headstrong, and she like had her ideas about things and you couldn't stop her once she like had an idea. But other than that, like, she was a pretty kind person. And not saying she was like rude or anything in Queen Charlotte, but there's like, well, I mean, I guess she was, but to me she wasn't a bad person. Like, I know a lot of people didn't like her, but it was like, she's a queen. Like, I don't know, but I personally liked her as a character in Bridgerton. Like, I understood why she was the way she was, but I kind of just want them to show, like, I hope that the show gets more seasons so they can show how Queen Charlotte ended up like that, because I think there was something significant that happened with George that kind of made her like kind of shut down and be like, okay, well, I need to be like more of a stickler, or maybe it was something that happened like in general. But in the book, I felt like Charlotte was a little bit more nicer than she was in the TV show. And to me, it felt a tiny bit inconsistent with the TV show, but nothing that like really irritated me. Like, it was nothing that like took me out of the story or really bothered me. I kind of was just like, these two feel like a little bit like different people, and it could have just been the way that I was reading it, honestly. I also feel like there are scenes in the show, I mean the book, that didn't happen in the show that like kind of gave their relationship a little bit more depth, which like I feel like maybe like they cut some scenes out, or they just let what is Julia Plague, oh my gosh, it's like the Vampire Diaries is always there to hunt me in the end. Julia Quinn, I don't even remember what I was saying. I don't know why I assumed the book would be Fade to Black, but it absolutely wasn't. So, you know, if you're looking for a little bit of smut, it is very consistent with the TV show. The doctor scenes were so hard to read. Like, I thought in the TV show, because, like, I started the TV show a little bit late. I feel like everyone who started the show as it came out, you just went in there blind. You didn't know what happened. But, like, I started it late. So, I already seen the edits. I already had, like, a little idea of what was going to happen. And so, I thought the doctor scenes were going to be, like in the show, I thought it was gonna be like traumatic. Like I thought it was gonna be hard to watch, and it was hard to watch, but like it really didn't like damage me mentally, whereas in the book it was so hard to read. But it was interesting because to me the doctor, which they say his name in the book but I just don't care to remember it because I don't care about him, he is like very obviously on a power trip here. Like this is like very much something that he does, like the way, and like in the show it's kind of like hinted at, but in the book it's just like so much more in depth. Like you can tell that this man is doing this thing because he, like, George is a king. So like if you could have the power to make the king feel like he's nothing, then you are the most powerful person in the world, like in your mind, you know. And so like it was very obvious that it was like a power trip. Also, I saw a TikTok about King George and like the doctor and stuff, and it was like saying that like they were like slowly poisoning him and all of this stuff, and about like the real King George, because I've been getting like a lot of facts about the real King George on TikTok, which I love. But yeah, they just like really took advantage of his vulnerability, and it just like the scenes made me sad. Okay, and then the scene, like the iconic scene that like everyone posts, the scene where they're making out at dinner in front of like all of like the guards and stuff, that was written in Brimsley perspective, which I thought was so cool. And it was also like very funny because he was like trying to like, he was just like what do I do? And then Reynolds is there and they're just like, let's get everybody out. Like it was just so funny because it like threw him off guard, and it was just like so fun to read that from someone else's perspective. I do wish we got it from their perspective, but we already got the show in their perspective, so I think getting like that part from Brimsley's perspective was still fun. And then the scene where Charlotte wakes up in the middle of the night and George is like having like a mental breakdown, and he like doesn't know where he is, and he runs out butt naked, and like she ends up finding him and going, I'm your Venus. That was actually written from George's perspective, and it was like such a beautiful scene because he genuinely sees her as his Venus. And also it just makes a lot of sense because like from the moment he first saw her, he literally thought of her as like something as beautiful as the sky, which like as someone who likes astrology and also like loves astronomy, like that was just so beautiful. And then also like, you know how like in a lot of books these days like everyone has like a nickname and it's kind of like corny, and you can tell that the author is like writing these nicknames, so like when people tweet about it or talk about it, like they'll have like these special like nicknames for each other. Julia Quinn ate y'all up because like I don't know, it was like so cute because it wasn't like, it's not like something that's like it just means so much, you know. It's just like it has a meaning behind it other than like a character randomly calling someone a sweetheart and then like everyone on Twitter is like blah blah and his sweetheart. Like it was just like random, whereas in the show it meant something. And it's like that is how you write, okay? And it was just, I don't know, just I love reading a romance written from like someone who's been in the game for years, who knows what they're doing, versus like the newer authors who like get popular on TikTok. Like nothing wrong with it, but it's like, you know, the author, Miss Julia knows, and Shonda Rhimes, they know what they're doing, okay? And okay, so there is this really sad scene where Charlotte finds, you know, the scene where she finds George in like the basement. So when she finds him in the basement, there are blood stains and there are blood splatters everywhere and yellow stains. So like, to me it's like, okay, so there is literally blood and piss literally everywhere, and it's like that to me made it even more traumatic because like in the TV show they kind of like, obviously he's being tortured, but like in my mind it's like, okay, like it's not like, okay, like it's not that bad, like okay, the leeches and stuff like that, but like in the book it's like lobotomy level, which was my biggest fear watching King George, which what Queen Charlotte, which is why I think that when I was watching it, like I could handle the scenes of like him being abused by the doctor, because one, it wasn't really shown, and two, I was expecting lobotomy. Like lobotomy in TV shows, freaking lobotomies are my biggest fear. Okay, like they are my biggest fear. So I fully expected like that to be happening, and then but lobotomies didn't start until like the 1900s, I think. I don't know, I'm not a history girl, I just read, okay? But I think lobotomies didn't really start until like way after this anyways, but they're still my biggest fear. So I was like watching it body mind, but like in the book it was like lobotomy level of like shit going on. Like, this man is sick. Him and his family line need to be cursed. In this scene where she finds George, it's not like in the TV show. I can't remember exactly how that happened. That's what I get for taking so long to read this book, but it's not like in the TV show. Oh, okay, so in the show she's like helping George and she's like holding him and she's cussing out the doctor. Then in the book she helps George, she gets him out, and then she goes back to Q and then she cusses the doctor out, which George was there. And I love that scene because George also like was protecting her, and he was like stepping in front of her and like really like just showing how much they care about King George to begin with. And then there's also a scene at the end, so you know, like towards the end of Queen Charlotte when they're dancing, like when Reynolds and Brimsley are like dancing. So in that scene, Charlotte and George actually end up like taking a break from everyone, and they end up like stepping out and they see Brimsley and Reynolds dancing, and they figure out that they're like in love with each other, and they're so supportive of what the crap, they were so supportive of their relationship. And I just thought it was like the cutest thing. Like even like, I don't know, the book like it kind of gives a little bit of found family. I really hope that this show gets another season so we can know how everyone, like what happened to Reynolds, like why Queen Charlotte act like that, because like this one kind of gives like family, like they're like a family, even though Reynolds and Brimsley have to like their guards. It just like, I don't know, I just really loved it. Then in the end of the book, just like in the TV show, it ends with Charlotte going to tell George that their son Edward is having a baby and they're under the bed together, which like brought me to tears. When I was watching the TV show, like I knew everyone was gonna cry at the end, but like I don't cry a lot, which I cry when I watch TV, so I should have expected it, but I don't cry when I read. So I kind of was like thinking about that, and I'm like, it can't be that sad because King George is still alive. Like we don't really know what happens to Reynolds. I'm thinking it was something sad with Reynolds because King George is alive. So I'm like, okay, what can be so sad at the end? Girl, oof, the tears that I cried. That's what I get. So yeah, that is it for this video. I hope that you liked it. Check out Queen Charlotte the book if you watch the TV show and you're obsessed and you are just like me and you are like hyperfixating. Read the book, okay? I cannot wait to get a physical copy and annotate it. It's like one of my favorite books of the year so far. I really want to get back into my historical fiction romance era, so if anybody has any like recommendations for like arranged marriage, enemies to lovers that's not Outlander, I will be getting to that, but it's like 30 hours long on audio. So if anybody, but if you want to recommend like your favorite historical fiction, you know, if you know any like black girl historical fictions, I know like that aren't Beverly Jenkins, I will be reading her, but you know, unless you want to recommend your favorite Beverly Jenkins, actually I would like that. So yeah, if you want to see a video of me doing a Bridgerton reading vlog, because I'm going to be finishing Bridgerton, let me know. And then I'm going to be reading some historical romance books that kind of read like Bridgerton, and I'll be doing a recommendations video off of that. Also, let me know. But yeah, okay, that is it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.